Hi, today we're going to talk about the order for your argument essay. And the reason that we really need to think about our order for the argument essay is because it's going to be based on reasons that are not necessarily directly impacting each other. In earlier essays, like the urban legend essay, the order kind of presented itself. There were certain things that you needed to accomplish first before you moved into the other parts. But with an argument essay, let's say you have an example of 4 reasons. So each body paragraph is one of these 4 reasons. Well, how many possible orders would there be for those 4 reasons? Well, if you guessed 24, you would be correct. A little bit of math, 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. There are 24 possible ways to order even 4 paragraphs. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean there's 24 good ways to order those paragraphs. So we have to think about what is a logical way to go about doing that. So we're not just randomly putting our paragraphs together and hoping that it makes sense. Okay. So there's a few ways that you can approach this. One way, if it works, is chronological, okay, based on time, early to late. This really works well if your reasons have to do with, for instance, short-term and long-term results or impacts of something. So if you were talking about the need to, say, legalize marijuana, you could talk about first short-term benefits, maybe talking about how this would decriminalize the drug, take more people out of the prison system. But you could also look at long-term goals then, something that would take a little bit longer to come into effect, like raise tax revenue, having an impact on the government, things like that. So things that maybe take a little bit longer would be talked about after the things that are more immediate, like stopping the arrests. But not all topics have that. Not all of your reasons are necessarily going to be in a clear chronological order. Okay. So for instance, let's say I had this thesis, that stricter laws should be implemented at campsites to lessen chances of forest fires. Okay? And then I have my 4 reasons. Forest fires can cause massive human death. Forest fires cause expensive property damage. Pollution of water and air is increased by forest fires, and animal habitats can be decimated by forest fires. All 4 of these reasons are good. I would support them with a paragraph, plenty of evidence, all that good stuff to make a solid argument. But the fact of the matter is, as we said, there could be 24 orders that these could go in. I could start with the one about human death and get into property damage, or I could start with human death and get into the animal habitats, etc. So we got to think about what order do we want to use? What's the one that makes most sense for our reader? And none of these are necessarily chronological either, right? At the same time that property is being damaged, people can be dying, animal habitats can be destroyed at the same time that pollution is happening. So we have to have some other guiding principle. And one way that works really well for the order is order of importance, okay, is when you think about what reasons have the greatest importance or the greatest impact on the reader. Now, this is not to say that some of them are unimportant. I would say all 4 of these reasons are decent, important reasons to be concerned about forest fires. It's just that some are more impactful than others, right? We shouldn't include any reasons that don't have value, but we do want to think about what's the most important and which ones are less important. And for the most part, it works best to go from least to most important. Now, sometimes people think, well, let's start with the most important reason, hit them really hard with that to get their attention. Well, it's not a bad thought, and that's what something like a newspaper article does. The problem with that, of course, is if I start with the most important, something like, say, massive human death, and then I'm starting to talk about air pollution, well, it seems like kind of a drop-off, and if people are already concerned about human death, then they may not be that concerned that the water gets dirty. Even though it's still something that's of concern, it doesn't seem as big of a deal once I've started with that most important. So to make sure my reader reads through the whole essay, it makes sense to start with the least important, right? Want something that's still valuable, but then build up. It's a crescendo if you're musically inclined. And if you think about it, you have an attention getter at the beginning of your introduction anyway to get the reader interested. Okay? So then think about how would you order these 4 sentences if you wanted to start from the least and then build to the most important. Okay, I'll give you a second to think about that. Okay, now personally, I have an order that I think makes most sense. You may disagree with this, okay? And it's up for debate, but you do want to think about, in general terms, an order of importance that'll appeal to your reader. Okay? So if I was looking at these and looking for the first paragraph, so the one that is of least important, I would probably go with pollution, okay? Because pollution is important, right? If water and air is definitely important because that has a huge impact on other things. But a lot of times the negative implications of pollution take longer to have an effect as opposed to some of these other things that are more immediate and more damaging in the short term, but also in terms of actually affecting living things. Pollution of water and air will definitely impact animals and humans, just not as severe as, say, burning to death. From there, I personally would go with property damage. Some people might argue that the animals are less important than the fire, than causing property damage, but I'm going to go with forest fires causing expensive property damage. The third, I'd go with animal habitats, and I would end with the human life. Once again, some would argue against this, but I think that this is a good, solid order that I think fits with the least to most important reasons. Keep in mind that all of them are valuable. So when you're writing your own essay, and you have your reasons, and keep in mind it doesn't have to be 4, it can be 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. However many you have, though, think about what order makes most sense. A chronological order works, great. If an order of importance works, that's fine too. You just want to make sure it fits your essay and that the order in which your reader actually gets through your essay makes sense, has coherence, is going to lead to an effect on the reader that you want to get with your purpose.